to close everything out. I am going to share my screen. So give me a second here. And make sure I get the right screen up. And we'll get started.
That looks great, Johanna.
All right, perfect. Thank you, John, for telling me. And as John said, I'm Johanna Ward. I'm the administrator of the Office for Exceptional Children at the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. And one thing that you all did yesterday, which I didn't get a chance to do, was to share the unicorn and superpower. So I'm going to take a minute to do that. Everybody, I think, picked up something from your desktop or shared something. So mine is, this is a, hard to see here. I'm trying to put it on my shirt background. This is a Chinese calligraphy brush. So calligraphy is something I like to do. I also can use fountain pens. And, you know, to me, that just is an art of communication. So I've had this on my desk. I keep it on my desk. I have multiple ones. I use it. So that would be the superpower. If I really had a superpower, would be to communicate better. I'm always working on communication. It's never perfect, so always working on that. But I have a couple things for you all. So we can take a minute. We're going to engage for just a minute in the chat. So get your fingers ready. I'm going to ask you a question. This is kind of like a would you rather thing. So I want you to put in the chat. Don't be scared. It's okay. Interactive chat moment. It's about fictional characters. So think about fictional characters. What fictional character would you want as a coach or a mentor? Mary Poppins or Huckleberry Finn? Put it in the chat. Which one of those would you want as your coach or mentor? Yeah, I wanted Mary Poppins too. She's got that bag with all the stuff, you know. She's like on the spot. Oh, Wonder Woman, yes. couple Huckleberry Finns. Yep. I mean, Huckleberry Finn kind of takes a different approach to life than Mary Poppins did. So that's something to think about. All right, here's the next one. We're going to do it again. Ready? Bugs Bunny or Jack Sparrow? Trying to touch some different genres here. Let's see what we have. I love the Jack Sparrow. Bugs Bunny, he's a little like clever, you know, and Jack Sparrow's is right out there with it. Great. Okay, another one. Okay, ready? This is a shift. Wednesday Addams or Spider-Man? I love it. I think I want to Wednesday Addams would be interesting to have as a coach. that surely would be interesting. All right, here's a different grouping. E.T. or Katniss Everdeen? I wasn't sure if some people would know who E.T. was, so I had to put him with Katniss. Katniss, yes. Sometimes we feel like we're there. Yeah, thanks. All right, one more. Well, I have two more. Dumbledore or Gandalf? That's our Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings grouping. Dumbledore, yeah, I like Dumbledore too. Gandalf is kind of a little scary. Good job. Okay, last one. Obi-Wan Kenobi or C-3PO? Obi-Wan, C-3PO. That's our Star Wars reference for today. Obi-Wan, I like C-3PO because he's like a little sharp-witted. Some humor, sharp-witted humor in there. Yeah, Data. Yeah, that's true. Okay, thank you. Thank you for engaging in that space with me today. I love that. I get a good sense of who's out there, what kind of mentor or coach you would like to have. We'll see what we can do. All right. First, before we get started, I also want to spend a little time with some gratitude. Thank you to the SIGnetwork. Thank you to John. Thank you to Jennifer and all the leadership at OSEP who leads the SPDIG work, who has helped tirelessly organize the meetups, the leadership meetings, the community of practice, all the resources, bringing states together, bringing families together, helping us support teachers, families, and students. Without you all organizing all of this, like it would be very difficult. So very much thank you to all of you. Thank you for leading this. Providing support and structure really helps all of us to progress and move forward together. It gives us a space for a collective mindset so that we can grow together and we can make some shifts together. So let's get started on this journey. I'm going to share with you some stories. There are going to be some stories about what we've learned together nationally, some stories about what Ohio has learned, and then a little bit about what I have learned as a leader along the way. So I hope that you take away something from all of this that you can extrapolate and use for your future. All right, so first, the SIGnetwork. Thank you, John, for saying that I've been around longer than you. That made me feel great. Yes, that's okay. SIGnetwork. So Ohio, I think, is one of the first states to have a SIG grant. Back in the day, they were called SIG grants. And I came on board here in about 2004. And we were just ending a SIG grant that we had. It was from 1999 to 2003. And then we have had successfully continuous, we moved into SPDIG grant from then on. So we've had 6 continuous grants to the tune of $55 million. We've almost touched the majority of all our districts across the state. We've built continuously upon each one. I heard many of you talking about that today. Some of you have had multiple grants for continuous years or set of years because you've built upon the efforts from the last one. So you've sustained, grown, and you built forward. We did the same thing in Ohio. Our very first one of the first ones out of the gate, we honed all in on schools. So we were honed all in on what teachers are doing in the classroom with the student and what is that instructional piece looking like. And we made great gains, and we were so excited about that when I got here in 2004. They had so much data and so much information. They're like, look what we did. But one thing we were not able to do was to sustain that because, you know this, teachers move, leadership moved, things changed. And none of the work that we did was anchored to a leadership structure. So at that time, we did not build in this leadership approach. So our next grant, we built on that and added to it, like, well, we got to build in leadership. So then we built in a leadership structure. And then the next grant after that, we built in a state regional structure. And then on top of that, we focused on how that regional structure deploys supports. We maintain literacy focus. We added, I think one of those grants, we added PBIS with that. So we had literacy and PBIS together. So we've built continuously upon all of those. We sustained our regional structure and have grown. We've touched over 600 districts across the state who have continuously been using the process and structures we've set up. Our regional system has been in place since that time. We've expanded into special populations, not only special ed, but EL and others. And then lastly, like this is one of our biggest moves, this current SPDIG, and that is bringing in the integrated MTSS structure, which many of you are doing too, I heard. So we're all in a good space, and it's a good place to be, to work together, to focus on that mind shift and how we're moving into that world of MTSS together. So I look forward to hearing more from all of you as we progress through this together and continue to talk, communicate, and share good practices. So yeah, we're in our 26th year of managing a SPDIG grant. So we're excited. We're excited to share that with you. This is a picture of one thing that nationally what SPDIG has done for us, or our SIGnetwork has done for us in the past. This is one picture I could find. You don't know how many files I had to dig through. I was telling my team, not only do I have virtual files, but all the paper files I have from way back. And bringing together all of us at national leadership or national meetings and having a space for us to share practices, share resources, talk about our successes, talk about struggles, and learn together is very important. And then this space where we have this meetup space where we can just network, get to know each other, relax, share a little of each other with each other has been brilliant. We've been doing that for many years. I don't know if 2012 was the first time we started that space, but that's the only picture I could find because there's probably not a lot of pictures of our meetups. But if you've ever, gone when we've been in person to actually sit and interact and talk to each other, and you see here collectively, we're kind of walking around, engaging with each other. That's what it's all about, right? There are so many things we can focus on. We've built together through this work, all of us collectively, focusing on implementation science. I heard it all day today and all day yesterday. Sustainability. We focused on how we look at impact, how we use data. We talked all kinds of ways about how we share data. One of the things I took away from one of these national meetings, a couple states did a really nice job sharing how they visualize data and bring data to life. So that was so exciting. Like, I never thought about visualizing the data in a different way until I heard other states talk about it. And so now I integrate that into how I approach a lot of our other work, not just SPDIG. I've brought that into everything. One thing I do as state leader is I go around and talk to our different stakeholders, our associations, our groups. And I always start with kind of where we are as a state. How many students are identified with disabilities and what do those categories look like? So one of the things I learned from that data visualization is a way for people to feel the numbers, right? So when I talk about Ohio and I say we have 269,000 students with disabilities in K-12 in Ohio, that's a number that may or may not really mean anything to anyone. But if I say, like the Ohio State Stadium, how many of you have been to a college football game? Probably most of you to some stadium. And a lot of people here locally have been to Ohio State Stadium, the shoe, OH, right? So when I say that stadium holds about 109,000 people, so the number of students we have on IEPs is filling that stadium up 2 2/3 time, roughly. They can feel that because they know what it feels like to walk through that stadium, sit in a crowd of people, and imagine that 2 2/3 time. They can feel it. That's exciting. That's something we all learn here together, how to visualize that data. So I wanted to share an example of how I brought that to life when I go out and share and talk about what's happening in Ohio, what does our population look like, and what are we doing. Another thing we talk about in visualizing data, something that I brought back to our state and our whole state's worked on, is our indicators. So many of us, we all have to report on our special education indicators. One thing we've done to help our districts internalize how they use the data, back to our data and how we're using it with our indicators, is to group them. So we've regrouped the indicators you see here, and they're grouped by essential questions. So these are ways we want our districts to think about and use that data to help answer those questions, create their plan, create their interventions and their structures, and then support something to change that data. Then this is not a set of standalone indicators. We have to do this. We have to make these reports, and here's the numbers. Yeah, it brings it to life in a more meaningful way. And that's, again, something that I learned here, our team learned here, engaging in the SIGnetwork, engaging and collaborating with all of you. And then we brought that back and applied it in a way that made sense to us. So I hope that you garner a lot of that through these engagements, this convening the national meeting, and you bring things that you've learned the last 2 days back and take it back and make some data dance, make it be visual, share it out. And then when we think about what's happening with our SPDIG presently, we're all here, we're all present, we're engaged, we're talking to each other. If you've gone to the SIGnetwork, you've seen the map, right? This is amazing. Look at this. We have most of the states and territories engaged in SPDIG. And these learning communities that come together out of this are something amazing as well. So there's different learning communities we can all engage with and talk to right now. We have the preschool, we have MTSS, we have states like New Mexico working on structured literacy, and Pennsylvania working on preschool and MTSS. Georgia, Alabama, Montana, we heard a lot today from Montana, Colorado, Pennsylvania working on MTSS as well. How we engage with families, how we bring on coaching, serving Native American students, states with small populations. There's a community for everyone, right? There's a space for all of us to go to hone our craft, to share resources and connect. And I just love that we have this. So thank you again to SIGnetwork for helping us by leading these communities of practice. This is a value add. Next, I'm going to share with you a little story about my background in my life and what has influenced me as I approach the world of work. My staff are on here, a couple of my staff, so you'll love this because I don't usually share anything personal with my staff. So they're going to be like, oh, great. We're going to learn something a little bit more. This slide, this is my dad. This is circa 1972. And he is an aeronautical engineer. He is working on designing the space shuttle. So his whole career was focused on designing and working on the space shuttle, supporting it as it, lived its 30-year life. And what I learned from that is I saw him work on that every day. He was working on his engineering aspect was focused on the wings. So he designed the wings, but he didn't do that alone. I was a curious kid. So I had lots of questions like, what are you doing? Who are you talking to? How are you making this? Like, what's going on? Because he was working on it, talking, researching, studying, doing things. Oh, thanks for the rocket. all the time. And here's what happened. Like, I didn't really know till I asked the questions. It's not just one person or a small team, even at the company that he worked for designing this. He was engaging, this is 1972, with people from across this country and world. So there was sometimes he's up at like 2 o'clock in the morning talking to someone because they're in California or whatever, and they're working. And they had modems and they would connect and share data. He would type up all his stuff. He would send it through modem over there. They would connect it and they would send things back, and they were working out problems. They were talking to each other just like we do. They were collaborating. They were sharing ideas. They were testing things. They were trying it, sharing the data on what they learned and building it. But this was like huge. I mean, sometimes when we sit in meetings, like I sit in meetings around here, and people will say, well, let's just try it because it's not rocket science, people, that I kind of giggle. But they had to make sure it was right? Because those are people's lives that are going to be in there. We deal with people's lives too. We deal with our children's lives, students' lives, families' lives that matter. So while we're not building a rocket and actually putting people in there, we are building lives. So our sharing and communicating and testing out things and trying together is important. And it's important that we do that. And we're not just one person or one small team. There's many of us that are collaborating and coordinating together. So having those convening meetings, those communities of practice, the book studies, there's so many book studies that SIGnetwork has brought to us, like The Art of Gathering, Made to Stick, Making Numbers Count. We've learned from all of those and applied that, talked about it, worked through it. So we've had a common mindset about those things, just like they did to build the space shuttle. We've learned from like Michigan, Steve Goodman. Like I heard even today people talking about what we've learned in that space with MTSS. So all that to say, like, we want to build something that's going to last, that's going to have a long-term benefit for more people, not just a few people that we might test our SPDIG on or our work on, but more people. So we want it to last a long time. We want to build sustainability, and we want it to impact more. Program measures, that is something that we also share a lot about, not only making our data like come alive and dance and be visual, but actually, how are we diving into the data to look at impact? And then how are we doing reporting? There's a lot of time in these communities of practice where we come back to how are we looking at the data and measuring it. There are resources, there are tools through this work to help us connect, help drive making that important. So it's not an afterthought. It's not something we have to do at the end and say, oh yeah, we have to do our annual report. Let's go get the data. It's something we're continuously doing all along and making that important in our work. So let's talk about the future. I know it's hard right now to talk about the future. We can hardly figure out what tomorrow is going to bring, but there are many aspects of what we've been doing and learning that we can apply to our work, ourselves, our state as we move forward in the future. So there's a couple things we've engaged in planning and reporting, and let's talk a little bit here about leadership. So one of the ways that leadership or early SIG and SPDIG leadership meetings were held, we had one early on, it must have been 2004, 2005, somewhere around there timeline. The SPDIG held their leadership meeting, I don't think it was in conjunction with OSEP at the time. They brought other 325T grants together. So those were the higher ed group. So we came together with the higher ed grants, and then there was a big leadership component there. One of the meetings that I went to, and this was in DC, they had a plenary session. Most all of them had some kind of plenary session with an amazing presenter, someone who typically would share something about leadership. So I don't have time to tell you about all of those. There were always great takeaways. I always took away something from that and brought it back to how I applied to being a leader here. One of the stories I'm going to share next is about one of those plenary sessions where the speaker was a Navy admiral or some dignitary from the Navy. I'm not exactly sure his title, but he shared a story about Sir Ernest Shackleton. I hope you all might know him, but at the time when I went to this plenary session, I did not know any story about Sir Ernest Shackleton. So this was amazing. I sat and listened. I was on the edge of my seat listening to this story. One, he was a great storyteller. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. I'm just going to talk a little bit about it because we don't have time for the whole story. But I suggest you go, there's plenty of books out there about the Endurance, which is the ship here that Sir Ernest had. And there's some documentaries. But Sir Ernest Shackleton, he set off to go on this historic journey and explore the Antarctic. So he had this expedition he had to get together. He had to round up funding. He had to find team members. He had to get his ship in order. He had to get all the resources together. His ship was called the Endurance. So as he set off to do this, he started out, he got approval, he got permission, he got money, he got all the things in order. It took him time. He set out to Antarctica. That was his goal. They were going to go explore this space that never been explored. And he did all the research, all the planning, everything down to like how much everything weighed. Was he, how much the ship weighed? Do we have all the right supplies? Could they make it? He had to change the trajectory of his goal because you see here, his ship got stuck. His ability to bring all 27 crew members home from this safely after the ship was crushed in ice has made him a symbol of resilience and leadership. The ship went out to sail on 1915. They floated out in the Atlantic or the Antarctic for 10 months. They were stuck in the ice for those 10 months. They couldn't move. As you see here, the ship's like tilting, it's starting to fall over. They had to abandon ship on the ice in the Antarctic. They could only take the most essential things with them. They needed food, clothing, shelter. They took the lifeboats with them. That's what they carried all their stuff in, and then they used for shelter. They had dogs. They have one in that middle picture there. You see a team of dogs. They had dogs for a while. You can imagine what they had to do with the dogs. The cameraman that they have, you see there are pictures. This was amazing. The cameraman was adamant, like the thing he wanted to keep with him was the camera and the film and all the things in his journal because he wanted to keep track of this adventure and what was happening. And Shackleton was like, no, leave it all behind. And then they, moved on the ice. They moved like for a couple of days, and the cameraman was adamant he had to go back and get his camera. So he went back. He left the team, went all the way back 2 days back. He had to dive down into the boat to get the resources and the camera and everything back, and then join the team back. So there are some lessons on this journey. Shackleton was a transparent leader. He had to be transparent about the dangers that they faced, even when the situation was dire. He had to have clear communication. He had to help maintain trust and calmness with his crew. Could you imagine keeping your crew calm and build their trust to say, we're going to get off this boat and we're going to walk through the ice now? And he didn't just give orders. He led from the front. He shared in the hardships. He demonstrated the loyalty to his men. He get in there and is part of the work. He also created moments of joy and levity. Even in these bleak conditions, he celebrated birthdays. They encouraged singing. They fostered the camaraderie. They built a team. These rituals helped sustain their morale and their hope. He fostered this team of dynamic people who were sharing. They sacrificed. When one crew member spilled his milk, his ration of milk, the others quietly poured some of theirs into his mug. So there was a culture of sharing and caring and strength. Shackleton had to abandon the original mission when survival became the priority. He reframed success as keeping every man alive. His flexibility and focus on human outcome over ego or ambition were key to their survival. The expedition faced repeated disappointments. The ice was trapping the ship. They had failed marches. They had brutal conditions, but his optimism never wavered. His emotional endurance was crucial to keeping the physical strength of his team. He carefully selected his crew, not just for their skill, but for their temperament and for their compatibility. So his decisions balanced tactical needs and emotional intelligence. Now, let's shift. So that's one way to think about, walk away and think about leadership. Now let's shift. And this is another, I'm going to share this book. This is not a book that we shared in SIGnetwork. This is a book that I've read. And the reason I actually picked this book up to read it's called Unit X, How the Pentagon and Silicon Valley Are Transforming the Future of War. Not because I was actually interested in war. That's not why I was reading it. But you see here, Raj Shah and Christopher Kirchhoff are the authors. Christopher was actually my neighbor growing up. He was a little boy and I was a teenager, and I used to babysit him and his little brother. So when I saw that he, where I'd followed his career and where he'd been, and when he talked about producing this book, it was very exciting to read. I wanted to read it and see what it was. But what I found in here was the most amazing leadership story and dealing with bureaucracy, which we deal with. So a lot of it I was able to transpose into education. While it's not an education story, I think you might gain some benefit from reading about how they had to deal with struggles as well. So Raj was a former fighter pilot, and then he turned entrepreneur, and he worked together with Christopher. Christopher was a tech guy. He worked for the top 3 Pentagon leaders. He worked for Barack Obama. He served as his director for strategic planning at the National Security Council during the Obama administration. He was chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff. So he was a senior civilian aide there. And he worked directly with the Secretary of Defense. So he also won an award, a Medal for Outstanding Service Award, under the Secretary of Defense during his time there. So they were able to come together, and they went back to the Pentagon to talk about and bring to life technology strategies. And they wanted to impact how the Pentagon and how bureaucratic federal government works inside slow bureaucratic processes, and how they can move those processes into Silicon Valley speed, right? You see how things fast with technology and private business. So they had to work through that effort. So it's a fascinating story to talk about that. One of the chapters, I'm not going to tell you all the chapters, you'll have to go check it out. But one of the chapters is chapter 3, called Fixing the Gonculator. The gonculator is this fictional, mysterious electronical device. If you're of a certain generation, you might have heard them talk about it in Hogan's Heroes. It was a thing in Hogan's Heroes. But what happened is they were sent to go work and support the Combined Air Operations Center, or the CAOC. And this is where it was organized in Qatar in about 2005, 6, and there were airmen there. You see that here's an airman here on this slide, and they coordinated over 1,500 flights, mid-air flights, and refueling flights using dry erase boards, magnetic pucks, verbal callouts. They had some technology, they had computers, but their computers didn't talk to each other. So if one was crunching numbers on something, someone else, they had to get up, someone had to run to the board, write it on the board, and be able to calculate mid-air flight fueling situations. This was outrageous. So what did they do? They listened to the front line. They listened to the men there working on the whiteboards. They talked to the pilots. They identified the core need. They worked on building an app that really supported changing the processes. They were able to speed up the processes, make it faster, simpler, more effective. They were able to move out of magnetic pucks on a board and move into actually having multiple technology. They had apps, they had computers that then talk to each other and can communicate on running those processes for lining up those mid-air flights and refueling in mid-air. So this was an amazing win for them for this to happen. But it was a struggle, and they talk about that in their book, and they talk about the struggle of going through the bureaucratic process, finding the loopholes, getting the funding, getting approval for the system structures to make it happen. Sounds familiar, right? So what do we learn? What are our takeaways? We learn from that, which we already know. Talk to our front line. We got to talk to our teachers, talk to our families, talk to the coordinators, find out where the system is breaking down. We want to not wait for perfection of our prototype. We learn this from our SPDIG work, right? We're constantly reiterating and trying and things. We must lead with curiosity and urgency and trust in those closest to the work. So what systems in your state or your region might be outdated or inefficient or misaligned with the front line? We might think at the state level, something works great and this is perfect. And when you get down into the classroom level, that's not really, it's outdated. It's not really going to work that way because of how long it takes a state to process something or move it out. It might already be outdated, but we don't know that if we're not communicating with the front line. So that's important in our communication and what's happening. So identify your gonculator, listen to the front line, build those prototypes, reflect, and try and scale. That's what we learn here in our SPDIG. And then lastly, to wrap this up, this is a picture of my son. It was Bring Your Children to Work Day one day, and I brought him to work. And I think that his message on the whiteboard is important for all of us. I carry it with me. He set the learning targets for the day when he came in. It says learning targets. I know it's kind of fuzzy. This was 2005 picture. Learning target is do your paperwork, do your homework, do old stuff, and last and most special, have fun. So through all our SPDIG efforts, we're constantly learning together. We're growing. We're doing all those things together, but constantly we are communicating and having fun together too. I have there in the guide, there are 2 attached documents that I pulled together the themes from the 2 books, from the Unit X book and from the story of Sir Ernest Shackleton in the Endurance. So this is a tool that you can use to think about the mission, how each of them had to be adaptable, how they had to focus on their team, what kind of leadership style they had, and how they innovated under pressure. So that is one. And then the other one is a document you can take too, and it is about core mission, how they both set up their core mission, what the leadership style was like, team culture, decision-making, resistance that they encountered, and the ethical lens, which they had to look at things through. So continuously balance yourself between being a survivalist and or a disruptor. Always focus forward, learn from the past and move forward with your mission, yet be adaptable. Select your team, select your culture, grow your team together, lead from the front when necessary, and also align all others to be leaders too. Decentralize your leaders, grow teams to be leaders, innovate under pressure. Future efforts that we don't know what's going to happen next. We have AI coming on board faster than we know anything, and who knows what's beyond that. So continue to grow, have this collective learning space, share together, continue to use data, lead as Shackleton, continue to share and collaborate, just as we did during the shuttle times in 1972. If we could collaborate then, we can collaborate now. Continue to experience and grow and address new barriers together. Continue to innovate and don't stop believing in the power of the impact through your collaboration and your teams. So thank you.
Thank you, Johanna. Wow, what a great closing to a good conference. I really appreciate that. Your personal stories, the view that you have kind of throughout. I love the comment of make your data dance. That's awesome. That's meaningful too. And people are saying in the chat, kind of echoing what I say, but also thank you for your leadership throughout. And by no means did I mean to say that you've been around a long time. I'm just impressed that 26 years and how much can get accomplished in 26 years. It's really just, I'm flattered and honored to be a part of this group and to be able to learn from people like you who have seen this work kind of grow and evolve over time and watch that really make a change. So thank you so much for that. So this is bringing us, closing us down to the end here. We talked about yesterday, today, and tomorrow with the leadership of Johanna. Let's talk briefly about what tomorrow can look like in regards to the SIGnetwork also. And so that's the book club and the communities of practice and work groups. So we'll have a short time after this. It's voluntary, but I'll have a breakout